Let me just do that, and then we can let her in.
All right.
Let me just do that, and then we can let her in. So that's working. Okay, yes, you can let her in.
Okay.
So we have a number of people participating in the service today. Besides the Torah reader and the Haftorah, we have the prayers for community, country, and Israel, and a couple of B'nai Mitzvah kids too.
Oh, wow.
We'll be on the lookout for them. See, the thing about Helen is that her kids are not members of the synagogue.
Right.
For a time, one of them was.
Yeah.
Because they had the twins, Helena and Sam.
Mm-hmm.
So after their joint bar bat mitzvah, then they left. So the other one, Barry, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Barry had been in touch with me over the course of the years, but I haven't heard from him about Helen. So I'm not going to remember till after Shabbat, and I can't write it down. So Stacy, if you can just send me an email after Shabbat to remind me, maybe
Sure.
I can see if I can somehow reach. And if you have Barry's email address,
Okay.
you can send that to me. That'd be great.
Sure.
Sylvia was on last night for the service, and it always takes her a while to connect to audio.
Uh-huh.
She did it last night. She's not always successful. So we're going to see those three dots do that wave for a
I
little
love
bit.
her determination.
Yes. She was talking last night about how she was in kindergarten with your grandmother, and
Yep.
yeah.
I hear that story all the time.
Hey, Judy. Hey, Jules.
Good morning.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
We're trying to send positive vibes to Sylvia to be able to connect to audio.
That'd be great.
Yeah, come on, Sylvia, you can do it.
Any good news this morning?
Any good news this morning? I'll only say the Flyers won. That's the only good news. Oh, and the Capitals won last night too, but I'm more of a Flyers fan than a Caps fan.
No.
Obviously.
But the Wizards are in trouble with the virus.
Yeah.
6 players, I think, have tested positive. Crazy.
No good.
Sylvia, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
It's good to see. We were rooting for you to connect to audio because
I've been working. I've been pushing every button.
yeah, you finally pushed the right button.
I've been working at it for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm not good with it.
Oh, it's okay. You're the fact that you're on and fully connected. It's amazing.
It's a miracle for me.
Yeah.
It's a good thing I have my daughter here.
Yes.
I mean, I'd never be on.
I have something to show you.
Oh.
Can you see this in my hand?
I see the end of your sleeve. I don't see anything else.
Okay.
Shabbat Shalom, Mark.
Shabbat shalom. How is everyone doing this morning?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fine.
Good.
Then I'll make it official. I'll open the shade so I can see see creation.
What are you trying to show us, Sylvia?
It's a little gadget I found the other day in
Yeah.
a drawer.
Move
It's
your
the-
hand to the left and then we can see it. There we go. We see it now. Stop. Yes. It looks like a keychain.
Well, it's a little to put a key on.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, now. Sherry Tafilla congregation,
Yeah.
made in USA.
Me.
What was it given out by Share Tefillah for? What was there an occasion?
I'm trying to turn it over.
Ah, okay.
May I can hardly read it.
Okay.
I'm trying to.
Shabbat Shalom, David.
Shabbat shalom. You have a nice vacation?
We did. We did. Seems like ages ago, but it was nice. The weather down in South Carolina is like 15 degrees warmer than here, so we were able to be outside.
Yeah.
Hardly anybody around, so that was good. Safe.
I don't know if people know, but the county has opened up pre-registration for people to get the COVID vaccine for those in Group 1B.
That's the 75 and older.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'll say something about that later. Yeah.
So Karen's been told she's in 1B as a teacher.
Oh, right. Uh-huh. Yeah. Is Beth Tefillah virtual or in person?
In person,
They're in person, yeah.
most days.
Right. Shabbat Shalom, Rita.
They had a thing
How are
where
you?
Good,
Yeah.
good.
they had a thing where
Good trip.
some of the seniors did stuff together they weren't supposed to, so seniors went virtual. And then they figured out that the teachers who taught seniors also taught juniors, sophomores, and freshmen, so the whole high school went virtual for 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah. What a mess. Yeah. Hi, Audrey.
Hi.
Rita, you asked how my vacation was. It was nice. It was good to be away and
Good.
on the empty beaches of South Carolina.
Have a little rest from politics and everything else. that's
No,
going
we
on.
were watching like everybody else.
You were watching.
6th. Yes, we were.
Very upsetting.
Very, very upsetting. Yeah.
You came back without a southern accent.
That's Sylvia.
That's right.
Good
So
Shabbos to you, Bubbler. How are
Hi,
you today?
Sylvia. Good Shabbos.
she said good Shabbos to you, Rita. She said good Shabbos. She said good Shabbos, Bubala.
Oh, okay. She always calls me that.
Sylvia can do that because everybody's a Bubala in Sylvia's eyes.
I'm going to have to take a magnifying glass.
You have to
And
see
read
what
it.
that keychain says. Yes.
It's
We'll
something
see it.
about Sherry Tafilla.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of tchotchkes that Share Tefillah made over the years as souvenir items.
Sylvia, did you
Yes.
receive the vaccine yet?
Say it again. What?
Did you get the vaccine yet?
Oh, no, not
Okay,
yet.
did your children register you?
They tried. We couldn't get in yet. We tried yesterday, all day.
No, online you can register. I've registered.
You registered?
Yes,
When's your appointment, Rita?
they have to send me an appointment.
Oh, I see. You
You
just have to-
initially have to register and then they figure out your location and then
Yeah, got it.
a
Good.
lot of red tape.
It'll happen. It's very chaotic how Maryland is doing it, how lots of states are doing it. It's really.
Virginia's no better.
So they seem to be a little bit
I was out by
quicker.
Nova Fairfax Hospital yesterday,
Yeah.
and their professional center across the road from the main hospital is a vaccination center.
Mm,
The traffic is completely messed up. People
No.
don't know where they're going, what they're doing.
yeah, yeah.
I'm actually registered in two places. I registered online,
Yeah.
and when I went to my doctor's office yesterday, I had an 11:20 appointment. I got there a little earlier. And at 9 o'clock yesterday morning, the doctor's office received notification to submit 25 names, and I'm on that list.
Yeah. So that's, you see, my doctor sent out an email saying, don't bother us yet. We don't even have a waiting list. Don't call our office. We'll call you.
Good morning. You know that Jay Krosnick, who's got property over in Kent Island,
Yeah.
just called over to the Safeway and said, "Hey, you guys doing anything?" He says, "No, but they're doing it down at the fire station." He literally went over. They didn't ask for any information. Stood in line, got it, and came home.
My goodness.
Wow.
Shabbat shalom,
Shabbat shalom.
Jonah.
Smaller counties are able to do that. Hi, Mom and Dad. Hey, Paul. Hey, Cheryl. Hey, Barbara.
Shabbat shalom to everybody.
Shabbat shalom, all. Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell my story a little bit later too. So I was able to get vaccinated yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I have mixed feelings about it actually, but I'll talk about that a little bit later.
Make him a little louder.
No, don't have to. You're speaking softly.
And we can hear you, Dad.
Yeah, I know. Mom has to be reminded.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's good to see everybody. We have a number of people who are going to be participating in the service today. We have 3 people who observed a yard site earlier in the week who are going to be doing the readings. We have a couple of B'nai Mitzvah kids, one doing Ashrei, another doing Ein Keloheinu. So it'll be very nice. It's always nice that we have more than a minyan to start the service. But we're a little bit behind Park Avenue Synagogue. I zoomed into, I watched Park Avenue Synagogue last Shabbat while on vacation. They just have a measly 1,700 people watching their.
Wow.
So on Rosh Hashanah, that count a block when it hit 9.9K.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell you, it's quite.
They have a fabulous chazan. That's why they're so popular.
Yeah, and their rabbi's pretty good too. That's why I wanted to go to Park Avenue last Shabbat to see what he had to say about January 6th. So they had a bat mitzvah whose father is from Turkey. So the grandparents who still live in Turkey read Torah. So, Shabbat Shalom, Gershon.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Gershon.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
We'll get started in a moment. Shabbat Shalom, Marlene.
Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
I hear you, but I didn't see her.
Hi, Sylvia.
How are you today, Bubba?
Wonderful. Hope everybody else is too.
Another Bubba.
See, I tell you, Sylvia can call everybody Bubba. She's entitled to do that. You reach a certain age, you can call anybody you want Bubba.
Right.
All right. So Stacy is our co-host this morning, and she'll take care of muting everybody. And I want to wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And I'm glad to see that everybody is safe and well and looking happy. And that's the best we can do as we continue to wait to get vaccinated. As usual, we begin our service. I call pages from two Sidurim. The Sidur Lev Shalem, we're on page 147. The Shabbat Sim Shalom, we're on page 105. We begin with Shochenad.
Shochenad marom v'kadosh shemo.
Shochenad marom v'kadosh shemo.
V'chatuv ranenu tzadikim b'Adonai, la yesharim nava tehila. B'fi yesharim titalal, u'b'divrei tzadikim titbarach. ובלשון חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש, ובמקהלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל. שכן חובת כל היצורים לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, להודות, להלל, לשבח, לפאר, לרומם, להודל, לברך, להלל ולקלס על כל דברי שירות. ותשבחות דוד בן ישי, עבדך משיחך, ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו. קדושה ומלכות, ברכות והודעות מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול בתשבחות, אל ההודעות אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך אל חי העולמים.
Amen. If we can, we rise for Chatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמך רבה, בעלמא דברה קירותך, וימליך מלכותך בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דחו בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן.
שמי רבא מבורך.
רבא מברך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמך תקודשה בריאות לעילה. מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תאמירן בעלמה, ואמרו אמן. ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
Baruch Adonai Amvorach Leolam Vaed.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, יוצר אור ובורא חושך, עושה שלום ובורא את הכל.
May be seated. We continue in Lev Shalem on page 150 in Sim Shalom 107. Hakol Yaducha, Lishabachucha.
אין כערכך ואין זולתך, אפס בלתך ומי דומה לך. אין כערכך אדוני אלוהינו בעולם הזה, ואין זולתך מלכנו לחיי העולם הבא. אפס בלתך גולנו לימות המשיח, ואין דומה לך מושיענו לתחיית המתים. אל אדון על כל המעשים, ברוך ומבורך בפי כל נשמה, גודלו וטובו מלא עולם, דעת ותבונה סובבים אותו. המתגאה על חיות הקודש, ונדר בכבוד על המרכבה, זכות ומישור לפני כיסו, חסד ורחמים לפני כבודו. טובים מאורות שברא אלוהינו, יצרם בדעת, בבינה ובהשכל. כוח וגבורה נתן בהם להיות מושלים בקרב תבל. מלאים זיו ומפיקים נוגה, נאה זיום בכל העולם. שמחים בצאתם וששים בבואם, עושים בהם רצון קונם. פאר וכבוד נותנים לשמות, צהלה ורינה לזכר מלכותו. קרא לשמש ויזרח אורה, והתקין צורת הלבנה. שבח נותנים לו כל צבא מרום, תפארת וגדולה, סרפים ואופנים וחיות הקודש. לאל אשר שבת מכל המעשים.
Continue in Lev Shalem 152 to the top of 152, then on to 153. In Sim Shalom, the top of 109, and then on to 110.
תתברך מושיענו על שבח מעשה ידיך, ועל מאורי אור שעשית יפארוך הסלע. תתברך צורנו. וכולם פותחים את פיהם בקדושה ובטהרה, בשירה וזמרה, ומברכים ומשבחים ומפארים ומעריצים ומקדישים וממליכים את שם האל המלך הגדול, הגיבור והנורא קדוש הוא. וכולם מקבלים מלכות שמיים זה מזה, ונותנים רשות זה לזה, להקדיש ליוצרם בנחת רוח, בשפה ברורה ובנעימה קדושה. כולם כאחד עונים ואומרים ביראה, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. והאופנים וחיות הקודש ברעש גדול מתנשאים לעומת צרפים, לעומתם משבחים ואומרים ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. לאל ברוך נימו תיתנו. המחדש בטובו ובכל יום תמיד מעשה וראשית כאמור, לעושה אירועים גדולים, כי לעולם חסדו. אור חדש על ציון תאיר, 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 ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו, ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות.
Page 154 in Lev Shalem, 111 and Sim Shalom, we gather together our tzitzit in preparation for the Shema.
והאר עינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבנו לאהבה וליראה את שמך, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו, נגילה ונשמחה, נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך. והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו קוממיות לארצנו, כי אלפו אל ישות אתה, ובנו בחרת מכל עם ולשון, וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול, סלע באמת, להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. תשמעו מצוותיי.
We continue the middle of page 156 in Lev Shalem, the top of 113 in Sim Shalom.
ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל, ואמרת עליהם, ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציצית הכנף פתיל תכלת, והיה לכם לציצית, וראיתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. לדור ודור הוא קיים, ושמו קיים, וכיסאו נכון, ומלכותו ואמונתו לעד קיימת.
ודבריו חיים וקיימים נאמנים נחמדים לעד. אין אלוהים זולתך.
אמת שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, מלכנו מלך אבותינו, גואלנו גואל אבותינו, יוצרנו צור ישועתנו, פודנו ומצילנו מעולם שמך, אין אלוהים זולתך, עזרת אבותינו אתה הוא מעולם.
ממצרים גאלתנו אדוני אלוהינו. תהילה לאל יום ברוך ומרוך משה, וישב חמשיבה, שמחה רבה ויאמרו כולם.
תהילות לאל עליון, ברוך הוא מבורך. משה ומרים ובני ישראל לכנו שירה בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. שיר החדשה שיבחו גאולים, לשמך שפתיה, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
And we rise.
צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ופדי חינומך יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני מצוות שמו קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
We start the Amida out loud, 159 in Lev Shalem, 115 in Sim Shalom.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא אל עליון גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות ומביא גואל לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ופוקד ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים. ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים.
תקדש שמך בעולם כשם שמקדישים אותה בשמי מרום ככתובנו מחקר זה על זה ואמר.
נקדש את שמך בעולם כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום ככתוב על יד נביאך וקרא זה אל זה ויאמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוא כל הארץ כבודו.
אז בכל רעש גדול דיר חזק משמיעים כל מנסים למצרפים למתם ברוך.
אז בכל רעש גדול אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול מתנשאים לעומת צרפים לעומתם ברוך יאמרו ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. במקומך מלכנו תופיע ותמלוך עלינו כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון בקרוב בימינו לעולם ועד תשכון, תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים. ועינינו תראנה מלכותך כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך על ידי דוד משיח צדקך ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We continue silently in Lev Shalem 162 to 166 and Sim Shalom 117 to 120. Yismach Moshe
ושמעו ונעשו את השבת לעשות את שלום.
As we conclude our private prayers, we continue with Sim Shalom, top of page 120 in Sim Shalom or page 165 in Lev Shalem.
שים שלום בעולם, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישראל עמך. ברכנו אבינו כולנו כאחד באור פניך, כי באור פניך נתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו תורת חיים ואהבת חסד, אהבת חסד וצדקה ורחמים וחיים ושלום. שים שלום בעולם, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישראל עמך, וטוב בעיניך לברך עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שים שלום בעולם, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישראל עמך. ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל, מה shalom.
Amen. We continue with Kaddish Shalem, the full Kaddish, 167 in Lev Shalem, 138 in Sim Shalom.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמך רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותך, וימליך מלכותך בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו, אמן. יהי שמך רבה מברך, לעולם ולעלמי עמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמך דקודשה, בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. תתקבל צלותון ובאותון דכל ישראל, קדם אבוהון דיבי שמיה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו amen.
We turn back in our Siddur to the Psalm for Shabbat, page 72 in Sim Shalom, page 112 in Lev Shalem.
היום יום שבת קודש שבו היו הלווים אומרים בבית המקדש, מזמור של יום השבת טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר שמך העליון. עוד ינובון בשיבה דשנים ורעננים יהיו, להגיד כי ישר אדוני צורי ולא הבלהתה בו.
Warner's Kaddish is found on page 121 in Lev Shalem or page 82 in Sim Shalom. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabba, v'yalma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv imru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevorach le'olam o me'omaya, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. We turn our attention now to our Chumash. If we have the Eitz Chaim Chumash, we're on page 351. Whatever edition of Chumash or Torah you have, you're looking for the portion Va'era, the second portion in the book of Exodus. chapter 6, beginning with verse 2. Excuse me. In this portion, I'll say the blessing for Torah study. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
And this portion, we begin the process of the Exodus from Egypt. We find Moses still in dialogue with God, in which God is encouraging Moses to speak passionately to the people of Israel and to Pharaoh to ensure that the Hebrew slaves will be freed and begin the process of redemption and going to the land of Israel. And in that process, of course, we have the plagues, and we are presented with 7 of the 10 plagues in this morning's Torah portion. Joel Friedman is going to be our Torah reader this morning. We'll call on him in a moment. But just to point out the very beginning of this portion, which I talked about in our Torah study earlier this week, this idea, what we're presented with in the first verse, that 2 names of God are presented. Vayidaber Elohim El Moshe. So one name of God that we're familiar with is Elohim. Elohim spoke to Moses, Vayomer Elav, and said to him, Ani Adonai, I am Adonai. So that raises a question, as you see below the line on page 351, extensive commentary about this idea. Is God speaking to Moses as Elohim or Adonai? If God is speaking as Adonai, then why doesn't it say Vayidaber Adonai El Moshe, Vayomer Elav Ani Adonai? That would make more sense if God is introducing God's self to Moses as Adonai. So why is Elohim here? And so there's the rabbis of the Midrash, of the commentary back in the rabbinic era, 1500, 1800 years ago, and rabbis of all generations have commented about this. What speaks to me is this understanding that Elohim and Adonai have always represented 2 important aspects of God's many attributes. Aspects that come into focus on the high holidays when we pray fervently for the new year and pray fervently for repentance. Aspects that we represent in prayers every day of the year in our prayer book. That Elohim represents God's aspect of justice, and Adonai represents God's aspect of mercy. And that justice and mercy need to go together in terms of being a good leader and also in terms of ensuring proper functioning of the universe. For if God only ruled the universe with an aspect of justice, then none of us would be able to survive the world. Every little thing that we do wrong would be punished, and we'd be constantly in this frame of mind, the rabbis say, and a constant existence of being punished. But if the world only was conducted with mercy, then it would be anarchy. Everybody would be given a pass for whatever actions they do wrong. Because with an aspect of mercy, it's okay. We're given the benefit of the doubt. We need both justice and mercy justice needs to be meted out with mercy in order for the world to be conducted appropriately. And perhaps God is teaching Moses something here as well. As Moses becomes the leader of the people, we're told in this portion that Moses begins his job at 80 years of age and his brother Aaron at 83, that there's still much productivity in our lives till 120, literally with Moses, that as a leader, he needs to maintain both the aspects of justice and mercy in order to be accepted. So Joel's going to read for us what is essentially listed here as the first Aliyah. He'll start from the beginning of the portion and go to page 354 to the top of the page there through verse 13. So chapter 6, verses 2 to 13. Go ahead, Joel.
וידבר אלוהים אל משה, ויאמר אליו, אני אדוני, וארא אל אברהם, אל יצחק ואל יעקב, ואל שדי, ושמי אדוני, לא נודעתי להם, וגם הקימוסי אספריסי איתם, לעשות להם ארץ כנען, ארץ מגוריהם אשר גרו בה, וגם אני שמעתי אס בני ישראל אשר מצרים מעבידים עושם, ואזכור אס בריסי לכן אמור לבני ישראל, אני אדוני והוצאתי אתכם מתחת סבלות מצרים, והצלתי אתכם מעבודתם, וגאלתי אתכם בזרוע נטויה ובשבטים גדולים, ולקחתי אתכם לי לעם, והייתי לכם לאלוהים, וידעתם כי אני אדוני אלוהיכם, המוציא אתכם מתחת סבלות מצרים, והבאתי אתכם אל הארץ אשר נשאתי את ידי לעשות לאברהם, ליצחק וליעקב, ונשאתי עושך לכם מורשה, אני אדוני. וידבר משה כן אל בני ישראל, ולא שמעו אל משה מקוצר רוח ומעבודה הקשה. וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, בוא דבר אל פרעה מלך מצרים, וישלח את בני ישראל מארצו. וידבר משה לפני אדוני לאמור, כן בני ישראל לא שמעו אלי, ואיך ישמעני פרעה, ואני ארעל שפסיים. וידבר אדוני אל משה ואל אהרון, ויצווהם אל בני ישראל ואל פרעה מלך מצרים, להוצאתי את בני ישראל מארץ מצרים.
Thank you, Joel, for reading the first of three portions that he'll be reading. What was listed here is what Moses is supposed to say to the people of Israel. This process of redemption. There are 5 verbs that are presented here as action. Hotseti, God is going to bring them out. Hitzalti, he will save them. Ga'alti, we will redeem them. Lakachti, will take them. And heveti etchem, and bring them to the land of Israel. So 5 verbs that are, as I said in the Torah study earlier this week, that are represented at our Passover Seder tables with 5 cups of wine. One for the 4 cups of wine that we say blessings for, and then the cup of Elijah, the 5th cup of wine, all representing these 5 verbs here that God says to Moses to say to the people in Egypt. This is what God's going to do. But the people could not hear in verse 9 because of kotzer ruach. What's translated here is their spirits were crushed, but literally their wind was short, or their spirit was short. I'll talk about that a little bit later this morning, but just think they couldn't hear what Moses had to say because of their kotzer ruach, this shortness of spirit or crushed spirit, and from the hard work. And perhaps they also couldn't hear because they didn't know who this Moses was. And that's in the second aliyah, which we're not going to read. The narrative stops and presents us with a genealogy of where Moses and the people are descended from, that we need to be reminded of their genealogy. But why here specifically, and why on Moses's family? Perhaps to remind us and to remind the people that Moses, though he looks like an Egyptian, remember, he was saved from the basket in the Nile by Pharaoh's daughter and raised in Pharaoh's household. So he looks like an Egyptian, even though he is a fellow Israelite. And he kills the Egyptian taskmaster and runs away to Midian for a while and comes back with a family. But who is this man who could be a stranger to the people of Israel? And to be reminded, we need to be reminded he's not a stranger. He comes from good lineage from the tribe of Levi. And that's what we are presented with in the second aliyah. The third aliyah is what is designated here as the third aliyah, is what Joel's going to read for us next, beginning on page 356, verse 29, through that entire third aliyah, chapter 7, verse 7. Go ahead, Joel.
וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, אני אדוני דבר אל פרעה מלך מצרים, אס כל אשר אני דובר אליך. ויאמר משה לפני אדוני, הן אני ארע על שפתיים, ואיך ישמע אלי פרעה. ויאמר אדוני אל משה, ראה נשאתיך אלוהים לפרעה, ואהרון אחיך יהיה נביאך, אתה תדבר אס כל אשר אצווך, ואהרון אחיך ידבר אל פרעה, ושילח את בני ישראל מארצו, ואני אקשה את לב פרעה, והרביתי את עושי, ואת מופתי בארץ מצרים, ולא ישמע עליכם פרעה, ונשאתי את ידי במצרים, והוצאתי את צבאותיי, את עמי בני ישראל מארץ מצרים, בשפטים גדולים. וידעו מצרים כי אני אדוני, בנתוסי את ידי על מצרים, והוצאתי את בני ישראל מתוכם. ויעש משה ואהרון כאשר ציווה אדוני, עושם כן עשו. ומשה בן 80 שנה, ואהרון בן 83 שנה, בדיברם אל פרעה.
Thank you, Joel. And we'll have one more in just a moment that he'll read, one more section that he'll read for us. And so here, again, we're told that Moses is 80 years old and Aaron is 83 years old. Clearly in the Torah, the leaders of the people are quite advanced in age, and certainly telling us as a lesson that no matter how advanced in years we are, we still have something major that we can contribute to society, and that we should be blessed. We should all be blessed with the strength and the fortitude of Moses and Aaron in our lives, so that we can continue in safety and in health to be a blessing to our families and to our community. As the portion continues now, we're introduced to the 7 plagues, blood, frogs, and you can't help thinking about the children's songs too, about one day Pharaoh was lying in bed and frogs were jumping everywhere. So it's blood and frogs and lice and the wild beasts and cattle disease and boils and hail are all presented to us. One thing I do want to say about this that the commentary points out as well is the nature of magic versus miracles. That is a theme here as the plagues continue, because the magicians, for most of them, are able to replicate what Moses and Aaron and God bring to the people of Egypt. And so what the people are left with is trying to understand, are these man-made tricks that are being presented, and we're supposed to be in awe of the great magician Moses and the great magicians of Egypt, or are they miracles, these supernatural events that can only be explained as God bringing them, because nobody else, no other human power can do this on their own? And clearly from the Torah, we're supposed to understand that they are miracles. How these events really happened, did these events really happen, are up for discussion for biblical scholars and Jewish religious thinkers over the ages. Are we supposed to understand this story that we're reading today, which is a foundational story of our people? We refer to the Exodus from Egypt all the time in Kiddush on Friday night. In other prayers, we always refer to the Exodus from Egypt. Is it important that these events really happen for us to authenticate the prayers that we say? I'm not so sure that it is important to see these as historical events that actually occurred. What is important is that clearly this is part of our religious faith tradition, and that it reflects a perspective that we can have on events in our lives today. Certain events that happen in our lives can only be explained as miracles, but other events, we might not be so inclined to call them a miracle, but rather a scientific explanation for it, or just a natural phenomena or coincidence. It all depends on our perspective on life. And what the Torah is constantly trying to teach us is to have faith and to have a perspective in which we see God's presence as much as possible, often in our lives every day. And certainly something happened to the people of Israel in the land of Egypt, and it's only explained here in the Torah as a miraculous event, that God intervened in history to make it happen. Of course, there are problems with that. We can't always be consistent in our approach and say God always intervenes in history. Because if God could intervene with the Exodus from Egypt, perhaps 33,000 years ago or so, then why didn't God intervene 80 years ago to prevent the Holocaust from happening? And so we are just as much as we want to see God's presence in our lives, we're challenged by that idea, because it's not always a consistent approach. It's not, we're not always left satisfied with understanding that idea as well. And so we come back to this story every year. We come back to the story every Passover and try to make sense of it for ourselves as we grow from year to year and how we understand God's role in our lives. So we'll conclude the portion this morning. Joel will read not the entire seventh Aliyah, but he'll start from verse 22 on page 366. So chapter 9, verse 22 in the Eitz Chaim, near the bottom of page 366, and he'll chant until the end of the portion.
Yomer Adonai el Moshe Niteis yadcha al hashamayim v'hivarad b'chol eretz Mitzrayim al ha'adam v'al ha'behema v'al kol esav hasadeh b'eretz Mitzrayim ויהט משה את מטהו על השמיים, ואדוני נשן קולו וברד, ותכלך אש ארצה, ויאמר אדוני ברד אל ארץ מצרים, ויהי ברד ואש מסלקחת בסוך הברד, כבד מאוד אשר לא היה כמוהו בכל ארץ מצרים, מאז היסה לגוי, ויח הברד בכל ארץ מצרים. אש כל אשר בשדה מאדם ועד בהמה, ואש כל עשב השדה היכה ברד, ואש כל עץ השדה שיבר, רק בארץ גושן אשר שם בני ישראל לא היה ברד, וישלח פרעה ויקרא למשה ולאהרון, ויאמר עליהם חטאתי הפעם אדוני הצדיק, ואני ועמי השעים, התהירו אל אדוני ורב מחיוס קולוס אלוהים וברד, ואשכה אסכם ולא תוסיפון לעמוד, ויאמר אליו משה קצצי אס העיר, אפרוס אס כפי אל אדוני, הקולות יחדלון, והברד לא יהיה עוד, למען תדע כי לאדוני הארץ, ואתה ועבדיך ידעתי, כי טרם תראו מפני אדוני אלוהים, והפשתה והשעורה נוכסה, כי השעורה אביב, והפשתה גבעול, והחיטה והכוסמס לא נוקו, כי אפילו הנה. ויצא משה מעם פרעה אס העיר, ויפרוס כפיו אל אדוני, ויחדלו הקולות והברד, ומטר לא ניתח ארצה, וירא פרעה כי חדל המטר והברד והקולות, ויוסף לחתו, ויכבד ליבו הוא ועבדיו, ויחזק לב פרעה, ולא שילח את בני ישראל, כאשר דיבר אדוני ביד משה.
Yasher Koach, Joel, thank you very much for reading the portions from the Torah so beautifully this morning. Before we continue with the Haftarah, at this point I recite the prayer for those who are ill. Unmute yourselves and I will go around my screen. So how you're all situated on my screen is different from how you're situated on your screen. So be patient. I will get to you, even though it looks like I should get to you first because you're right next to me on your screen. You're not necessarily next to me on my screen. So just unmute yourselves if you have a name to add to the list that I have. You can follow along on page 173 in Lev Shalem or 144 on the bottom of the page in Sim Shalom. Misha Berach Chavatenu Avraham Yitzchak V'Yaakov V'Imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel Leah Hu Yivarech V'Rapei Et HaCholim Shmuel ben Karet Penina bat Chana Leah Simet Tzivya bat Zelda Tzibachana bat Golda Ruth bat Sarah Nes Gildor ben Shoshana Shlomo ben Golda Tzivya Sarah bat Simaleah Simcha Natan ben Risachana Avia Sarah bat Cyril Issa Rachel Penina bat Ariella Tzipor Sheva bat Razel Chaim ben Rachel Leah, Gabriel ben Batya, Yehuda ben Leah, Froma Dreda bat Zisha, Malka Chava bat Sivya Sarah, Batya bat Rivka, Gloria Hyacinth, Howard Salter, Shira Elisheva bat Sarah, Yosef Shlomo ben Batya, John El Koba, Devorah Sheshel bat Chaya Rachel, Ephraim ben Golda, Yaakov Hirsch ben Sipora, Batya Tziro bat Batsheva, Razel bat Esther, Yosef Betzalel ben Ruth, Zev ben Chaya, Bela Chana bat Fega. I'm going around my screen now. So David Polinsky,
Hene Bar Chana,
Rita
Sarah
Ritz,
bat Freda, Rivka, Sila bat Zipporah, Ram ben Gita, Tzivka bat Sarah, Brina Freda bat Mildred, Yehuda ben Celia, and Mark Lurcher.
Audrey Haber,
Kluansky,
Cantor Adina and Glenn,
Gretchen Marianne Klein, Livia bat Rachel, Reuven Asher ben Leah, Marie Swanson.
Gershon ben Freya, Baruch ben Rachel, Yirmiyahu Aryeh ben Rachel, Ruth Adina bat Sarah, Rachel bat Leah, Rina bat Gabriella.
Valerie and Ira,
Debbie Tucker, Ann Zychek.
okay, mom and dad,
Moshe ben Miriam, Minda Fruma bat Malka Fredel, Tzvi Chaya bat Chana, Mordechai ben Sprinza Pessel, Dova Chava bat Elka, Yosef Yeshaya ben Esther Luba, Mordechai ben Chana.
Carl Gottlieb,
Regina Schichter, Terry Horowitz, Gary Green, Jim Scully.
Marlene,
Moshe ben Chana.
Dan Martyr,
Sandy Niederman.
Margie, Steve,
Abraham Ben from Elka.
Michael Gross,
Miriam Saravat Brina, David Ben Shana, Charnalea Bat Chaya Sarah, Sarah Miriam Bat Rachel.
Joel,
Simhinda Bas Malka, Esther Bas Yocheved.
Charlotte,
Irene Heckler, Ricky Weiser, Michael Weiser, Donner Cohn, Beverly Tillis, Jay Manius, Ben Petoskey, Sam Petoskey, Joe Petoskey, Alana Petoskey, and Elaine Petoskey.
Sylvia Levy,
Jane Dolmanya.
and Howie,
Hanalea Batsoshi.
and Stuart Carol,
Leah Brocha bat Bella, Goldie Rodman, Erin Kirschbaum, Patricia Rubago.
Kathleen and Eric,
Jenny Greenberg.
and I think that is it from the screens that I see. Kol hacholim b'kihilatenu hakadosh baruch hu yimalei rachamim aleihem lahachazikam lerapotam yishlach lahem mehera refuah shlema min hashamayim refuat hanefesh urefuat haguf b'toch shar cholim v'chazek et yedei hoskim b'tzarcheihem Shabbat Yimilazokor for Akravalavo Hashabagav Isman Kariv Nomar Amen. The Debbie Friedman song. Mishe Beirachavotenu Mekor Habracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishe Beirachimotenu Mekor Habracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. We continue now with the Haftorah. Naomi Yadin Mendik will be chanting the Haftorah for us in just a moment. That we can find the Haftorah in our Eitz Chaim Chumash, beginning on page 370. Whatever Chumash you're using, just look for the Haftarah that is designated for the portion Va'era. It's taken a little bit from the 28th chapter and mostly the 29th chapter of Ezekiel, who prophesied to the people of Israel in exile in Babylonia. And in his book, he had many prophecies, mainly about how the people will be returned and restored to the land of Israel, and the temple would be rebuilt. But he has other messages as well, including the message in this Haftarah, which connects to our Torah reading, about the future destruction of Egypt. From the Torah, it'll be clear that Egypt is destroyed because of the plagues and then the crossing of the sea. It seems as if Egypt is gone for good, but clearly in Jewish history and world history, that's not the case. Egypt maintains as a power. And so the prophet Ezekiel reiterates the message from the Torah that Egypt will be destroyed. The Pharaoh who sees the Nile as a god, and some of the other images from this morning's portion are here in the Haftarah as well, and that those the thinking of the Egyptians and Pharaoh is wrong and doomed to be destroyed. And so the message then from the Haftarah is that not only in our history in the past did God intervene to save us, but in the future, God will be there to save us as well. That's the message of the rabbis. So the Haftarah again is on page 370 in the Eitz Chaim. The blessings before and after the Haftarah in Lev Shalem is page 175. In Sim Shalom, the bottom of 146 and 147. Go ahead, Naomi.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim v'retzav v'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah uv'Moshe avdo uv'Yisrael amo uv'nviei ha'emet v'tzedek.
Amen.
Amar Adonai Elohim b'kabtzi et Beit Yisrael min ha'amim asher nafo tuvam v'nikdashti bam le'nei hagoyim v'yashavu el admatam asher natati l'avdi Yaakov v'yashavu aleha lavetach uvanu vatim v'natu chiramim v'yashavu lavetach v'asoti shafatim v'chol hashatim otam misaviv otam v'yadu ki ani Adonai Elohehem. Bashana asirit ba'asiri b'shneim asar lachodesh hayadavar Adonai Elai lemor. Ben Adam sim panecha al paro melech Mitzrayim v'hinave alav al Mitzrayim kulach daber v'amarta ka'amar Adonai Elohim hineni alecha paro melech Mitzrayim hatanim hagadol harovetz B'toch Ye'orav asher amar li Ye'ori ba'ani asitini v'natati chachim b'chayecha v'idbakti degati orecha b'kaskasotecha v'ha'aliticha mitoch Ye'orecha ve'et kol degat Ye'orecha b'kaskasotecha tidbak Und hashticha hamidbara otecha ve'et kol degad yorecha al penei hasadeh tipol lo te'asef lo tekavetz l'chayat haaretz ol hashamayim netaticha le'ochla v'yadeu kol yoshvei Mitzrayim ki ani Adonai Yan heyotam mishenet kanel leBeit Yisrael v'tovsam bechav akav terot uvkata lahem kol katev uvhishanam alecha tishaver v'amadta lahem kol motnaim לכן כה אמר אדוני אלוהים, הנני מביא עלייך חרב, והכרתי ממך אדם ובהמה. והייתה ארץ מצרים לשממה וחורבה, וידעו כי אני אדוני. ין אמר יאור לי ואני עשיתי. לכן הנני אליך ואל יורך, ונתתי את ארץ מצרים לחורבות חורב שממה, ממגדול סבנה ועד גבול כוש. לא תעבור בך רגל אדם ורגל בהמה, לא תעבור בה, ולא תשב 40 שנה. ונתתי את ארץ מצרים שממה, בתוך ארצות נשמות, ועריה בתוך ערים מחורבות, תהיינה שממה 40 שנה. והפיצותי את מצרים בגויים, וזריתים בארצות, כי כה אמר אדוני אלוהים. מקץ 40 שנה אקבץ את מצרים מן העמים אשר נפוצו שמה, ושבתי את שבות מצרים, ושיבותי אותם ארץ פטרוס על ארץ מכורתה, והיו שם ממלכה שפלה. מן הממלכות תהיה שפלה, לא תתנשא עוד על הגויים, והמעטתים לבלתי רדות בגויים, ולא יהיה עוד לבית ישראל למבטח מזכיר עוון בבנותם אחריהם, וידעו כי אני אדוני אלוהים. ויהי ב27 שנה בראשון באחד לחודש, היה דבר אדוני אלי לאמור. בן אדם, נבוכדרצר מלך בבל העביר את חילו עבודה גדולה אל צור, כל ראש מוכרח בכל כתף מרוטה, ושכר לא היה לו ולחילו מצור על העבודה אשר עבד עליה. לכן כה אמר אדוני אלוהים, הנני נותן לנבוכדרצר מלך בבל את ארץ מצרים, ונשא המונח ושלל שלח ובזז ביזח, והייתה שכר לחילו. פעולתו אשר עבד בך, נתתי לו את ארץ מצרים, אשר עשו לי נאום אדוני אלוהים. ביום ההוא אצמיח קרן לבית ישראל, ולך אתן פתחון פה בתוכם, וידעו כי אני אדוני. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, האל הנאמן, האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. נאמן אתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו, ונאמנים דבריך, בדבר אחד מדבריך, אחור לא ישוב ריקם, כי המלך נאמן ורחמן אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני,
שמו.
האל הנאמן בכל דבריו.
אמן.
רחם על ציון כי בית חיינו, ולעלובת נפש תושיע במהרה בימינו, ברוך אתה אדוני,
שמו.
ושמח ציון בבניה.
אמן.
שמחנו אדוני אלוהינו באליהו הנביא עבדך, ובמלכות בית דוד משיחך, במהרה יבוא ויגל ליבנו, על כיסאו לא ישב זר, ולא ינחלו עוד אחרים את כבודו, כי בשם קודשך נשבעת לו, שלא יכבה נרו לעולם ועד. Baruch atah Adonai,
Shemo.
Magen David.
Amen.
Al Torah, al Avodah, al Nevi'im, Yom HaShabbat Hazeh, Shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu, Litrushav limnucha, lichavod ultif aret. Al HaKol Adonai Eloheinu, Anachnu modim lach, Umvarachim otach, Yitbarach Shimcha befi kol chai tamid le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai,
Shemo.
Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. We wish a Yasher Koach to Naomi for chanting the Haftarah for us so beautifully this morning. Much appreciated. We continue in the service. 3 people who have had yahrzeits observed this past week will be reading the prayers for us. We begin with Margie Isaac, who's going to read for us the prayer for those who serve the community. It's found on page 176 in Lev Shalem, or the middle of 148 in Sim Shalom.
Prayer for those who serve the community. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless this entire congregation, together with all other holy congregations, they, their families, and all that is theirs, along with those who devote themselves to establish synagogues for prayer, as well as those who enter them to pray, and those who provide for their maintenance, wine for Kiddush and Havdalah, food for guests, bread for hungry, tzedakah for the poor, and shelter for the homeless, and all who faithfully devote themselves to the needs of this community and the land of Israel. May the Holy One reward them, remove sickness from them, heal them, and forgive their sins. May God bless them by making all their worthy endeavors prosper, as well as those of the entire people Israel, their brothers and sisters. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Margie. And Kathleen Greenberg is going to read for us the prayer for our country, 177 in Lev Shalem, or the bottom of 148.
Our God and God of our ancestors, grant to our country the will and wherewithal to fulfill its calling to justice, liberty, and equality. May each of us fulfill our responsibilities of citizenship with care, generosity, and gratitude, ever conscious of the extraordinary blessing of freedom, ever mindful of our duties to one another. Bless those who volunteer to labor on behalf of us all. May they find the strength and courage to complete their tasks and fulfill their dreams. May our judges, elected leaders, and all who hold public office exercise their responsibilities with wisdom, fairness, and justice for all. Fill them with love and kindness, and bless them that they may walk with integrity on the paths of peace and righteousness. Creator and protector of all, watch over our armed forces and all those entrusted with our safety as they daily put their lives at risk to protect us and our freedoms. Be with them in times of danger. Give them courage to act with honor and dignity, as well as insight to do what is right in your eyes. Fill us with all the gifts of love and courage, that we may create a world that reflects your glory. May we each respond to the charge of your prophet. For what does Adonai demand of you, but to act justly, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. May the one who brings peace on high bring peace and prosperity to our world and keep us in safety. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Kathleen. And the prayer for the state of Israel, 178 in Lev Shalem, 149 in Sim Shalom, Valerie Kohlmeister.
Avinu Sheba Shemayim, stronghold and redeemer of the people Israel. Bless the state of Israel, that it may be the beginning of our redemption. Shield it with your love, spread over it the shelter of your peace. Guide its leaders and advisors with your light and your truth. Help them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who defend our holy land. Deliver them. Crown their efforts with triumph. Bless the land with peace and its inhabitants with lasting joy. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Kathleen and Margie. May the yard sites that you observe this week, may their memories always be a source of blessing and comfort for you. One of our upcoming B'nai Mitzvah students, Cheyenne Feldman, is going to lead us responsively in Ashrei on 181 and 82 in Lev Shalem and 151 and 52 in Sim Shalom. Cheyenne.
Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha, Od Yalucha Salah.
Ashrei Am Shekachalo, Ashrei Am Shadonai Elohav.
Tehillah LeDavid, Aramim Elohai HaMelech, Barbacha Shimcha Le'olam Va'ed.
Lechol Yom Avarcheka, V'yahalala Shimcha Le'olam Va'ed.
Gadol Adonai Umhulo Me'od, Veli Gedulato Ein Cheker.
Dor L'dor Yishabach Ma'asecha, Gvurotecha Yagidu.
Hadar Kevod Hadecha, V'divrei Niflotecha Asicha.
Le'ezuz Narotecha Yomeru, Gdulatecha Asaprena.
Zecher Rav Tucha Yabiu, V'tzidkatcha Yernenu.
Chanun V'rachum Adonai, Erech Apayim Ugdal Chased.
Tov Adonai Lakol, V'rachamav Al Kol Masav.
Yoducha Adonai Kol Ma'asecha, V'chasidecha Yevarchucha.
Kavod Malchutecha Yomeru, Ugevuratcha Yedaberu.
L'hodia Livnei Adam Gvurotav, V'chvod Adar Malchuto.
Malchutecha Malchut Kol Olamim, Umemshotecha B'chol Dor Vador.
So meich Adonai l'chol hanoflim, v'zokef l'chol hakfufim.
Einei Kol Elecha Yisaberu, Ve'ata noten lahem et ochlam v'yito.
Poteach et yadecha, u'maspia l'chol chayratzon.
Tzadik Adonai B'chol derachav, V'chasid B'chol ma'asav.
Karov Adonai l'chol korav, l'chol asher yikrauhu ve'emet.
Etzon Yiriyav Yaseh, Ve'et Shavatan Yishma V'yoshiyem.
Shomer Adonai et kol ohava, v'et kol harashaim yashmid.
Tehillah Adonai Yedaber Pi, V'varech Kol Basar Shem Kodsho Le'olam Va'ed.
Anachnu nivarech ya mi'ata v'ad olam. Hallelujah. Yasher Koach Cheyenne, that was beautifully done. Looking forward in the springtime for you becoming bat mitzvah. Before we continue with the service, I wanted to share a few words about one verse in the Torah reading that I'd said earlier that I would comment upon. I just want to spend a moment to try to connect this verse to Martin Luther King Day, which will be observed on Monday, and events in the world as they're happening today, and how it's amazing that from one verse, and that's the point of the Torah itself, in fact, it's not just to understand the context about which the Torah is speaking, but it's also meant to be a source of lessons for us today. In other words, by reading the story, we're not just supposed to understand what happened at the time of the story, or at the time of the people receiving the law at Mount Sinai 3,000 years ago, but rather the Torah is supposed to speak to us today and every day. And so the verses then take on nuanced, multi-layered meanings. And so the verse this morning in which Moses speaks to the people, God had told Moses, speak to them, tell them about how I, God, am going to take them out of Egypt, save them, redeem them, take them to the promised land and bring them to the land of their ancestors. Share that message with the people of Israel. And we're told that Velo Shamu El Moshe. They didn't hear Moses, or they couldn't hear Moses. You can translate it either way. Why couldn't they? Mikotzer ruach, because of this kotzer ruach, this shortness of breath, or perhaps the shortness of spirit or crushed spirit, and because of hard work. So from context, it's clear the people are working hard as slaves. Leave us alone, Moses, about this vision that you have. We can't hear you. We don't have the time to hear you. We're exhausted. We are short of breath because of how hard our Egyptian taskmasters are working us. So that just in and of itself could be the simple meaning, the peshat, the straightforward meaning of the text. But of course, there's more to it than that. What is this kotzer ruach that prevented the Israelites and perhaps prevents us from hearing the message? The idea of kotzer ruach, this shortness of spirit, the shortness of breath, doesn't apply just to that context of slavery 3,000 years ago. It applies to us in our condition today. How can we understand ourselves, and do we understand ourselves of having shortness of breath and shortness of spirit? Well, clearly we have been living this year of the pandemic, this COVID-19 virus that literally makes people short of breath. That anyone who is afflicted with the symptoms and with the virus itself, clear that the effect that it has on their lungs is such that it creates this shortness of breath. Some people, thankfully, have survived, but close to 400,000 people already in our country have died from the effects of this coronavirus. The people who have survived, I saw in some news source this week, the effect on their lungs, those who have survived, are worse than lifelong smokers. And that's incredible, the effect that a virus can have on, this virus can have on the body. So literally then, the kotzer ruach is what all of us have been living with, this shortness of breath that the virus has caused. But this year has also witnessed another incident of shortness of breath, with George Floyd literally having his breath cut short by a Minneapolis police officer last spring at the end of May. There for 8 minutes as the Minneapolis police officer had his knee on George Floyd's neck, George Floyd's breath was literally cut short. And so that shortness of breath can remind us of the racial injustices in our country and the work that is still needed to be done and to ensure that such police brutality, such racial injustice doesn't occur anymore, and that we can work together to ensure that no one, for whatever reason, because of justice and equality and freedom that we stand for, that no one will ever be short of breath. And also last week, our breath was taken away by seeing how the seat of democracy, this temple of democracy, as all of the senators and congressmen were referring to it, the temple of democracy that the Capitol building was inundated by rioters and insurrectionists. Our breath was taken away as we saw people shamelessly advertise sweatshirts wearing Camp Auschwitz or t-shirts and hats saying 6MWE, 6 million were not enough. These blatant images of anti-Semitism and hatred. The person who in this morning's newspaper was the account, he was arrested, this man who sat in the president of the Senate's chair wrote a threatening note that he left for Vice President Pence, who was subsequently arrested and said, oh no, that wasn't threatening, but I still do think that Vice President Pence is a child trafficking traitor. It's just incredible our breath is taken away, that such hatred and such animosity and such belief in conspiracy theories and falsehoods can exist, and anti-Semitism and hatred can exist and still exists in our country. So our breath was taken away by the events last week. Our breath is short because of the COVID-19 virus, and our breath has been cut short as we witnessed George Floyd be killed by a Minneapolis police officer. What can we do to rectify this and have full breath? What can we do to ensure that our spirits are not cut short, that our spirits aren't crushed? What can we do to ensure that we can seek justice and freedom and equality? There's an interesting comment on this that Rabbi David Wolpe brought forward in a Devar Torah he wrote for the Jerusalem Post this week. He brings a comment by a commentary known as the Meshech Chochmah. What was the problem with this shortness of breath, this Kotzer Ruach? What caused it? Perhaps because the Meshech Chochmah suggests is that Moses gave too broad a message to the people, that he spoke not only about them being freed from slavery, but he also wanted them to believe in the future event of settling in the land of Israel. That, the Meshech Chochmah suggests, is too much, that they were shortness of spirit because they just couldn't buy into that bigger message. They were stuck in slavery. They were oppressed and persecuted. Just free us right now in the short term, and then maybe we'll be able to have full breath, full spirit to be able to appreciate the bigger message. And so I think about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, may his memory be a blessing, his famous speech on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial over 50 years ago, in which he spoke beautifully and articulately and a lasting image of, I have a dream today. Perhaps that modern day Moses, that modern day prophet of Dr. King, perhaps he too, like the message in the Torah, was that was too much. We're still fighting for his dream. We're still fighting for his vision of a country in which color is not a barrier, that we see people as the creation of God, no matter what color, no matter what background, no matter what religion, that we all created in God's image. But perhaps that message on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial over 50 years ago was too much, and that people were still responding in Kotzer Ruach, shortness of breath. Certainly the Civil Rights Act was passed shortly after that, but we still see that we are far from a society of racial freedom and equality. And so perhaps the message for today is that we need to fight this fight and to stand for the ideals of which our country stands for and which our religion has been teaching us and our tradition has been teaching us for centuries, that we need to fight this fight one step at a time. Because if we go slowly, methodically, straightforward, without distractions along the way, then perhaps we will not be Kotzer Ruach, we will not have shortness of breath, but because of that determined walk forward, we will have enough energy with everyone walking together to ensure that we have full spirit, not short spirit, and that we will be able to see the day when justice and freedom will ring true in our country. Shabbat Shalom. We continue with Chatzi Kaddish for Musaf. We turned to page 184 in Lev Shalem, or 155 in Sim Shalom. And if we can, we rise for Chatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמך רבה, ועלמא דברה קירותך, וימליך מלכותך בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמך ומברך, לעולם ולעלמיה. יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמך דקודשה ברילה, מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמא, ואמרו
Amen. We start the Amida out loud together on the next page.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah. האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ופוקד, ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה. אתה גיבור עולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי המתים.
חג סוציאל שווה קודש, אמרתי שיש לך מקודש ככתוב ברחקר זל זה ויאמר.
נעריצך ונקדישך, כסוד שיח שרפי קודש, המקדישים שמך בקודש, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו.
משרתם שלם זה מקום כבודו למעתם, ברוך במהירות.
כבודו מלא עולם, משרתיו שואלים זה לזה, איה מקום כבודו לעומתם, ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו.
Oivim rachamim v'achonam yacharim shemo v'godelim b'mayim v'ava shemamrim.
ממקומו הוא ייתן ברחמים ויחונם המייחדים שמו ערב ובוקר בכל יום תמיד פעמיים באהבה שמע אומרים שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, מושיענו, והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו שנית לעיני כל חי, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש, לא ימוש לעולם ועד. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, כי אל מלך גדול, גדול וקדוש, גדול וקדוש אתה. כי אל מלך גדול, גדול וקדוש, גדול וקדוש אתה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We continue silently in Lev Shalem 188 to 192 and Sim Shalom 158 to 161. Tikkun Shabbat. As we conclude our private prayers, we continue with Sim Shalom, the top of page 161 in Siddur Sim Shalom, or page 191 in Lev Shalem.
Sim, sim, sim shalom, sim shalom tova uvracha v'olam. Sim, sim, sim shalom tova uvracha. Chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael amecha. Barchenu avinu kulanu ke'echad be'or panecha. Sim, sim, sim shalom, sim shalom tova uvracha v'olam. Sim, sim, sim shalom tova uvracha. Ki ve'or panecha natata lanu, Adonai Eloheinu, Torat chaim ve'avat chesed, u'tzedaka u'veracha ve'rachamim ve'chaim ve'shalom. Sim, sim, sim shalom, sim shalom tova uvracha ba'olam. Sim, sim, sim shalom tova uveracha. V'tov b'einecha levarech et amecha, amecha Yisrael, b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שים, שים, שים שלום, שים שלום טובה וברכה בעולם. שים, שים, שים שלום טובה וברכה. ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום.
Amen. We continue with Kaddish Shalem, the full Kaddish, 203 in Lev Shalem, 181 in Sim Shalom.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמך רבה,
Amen.
בעלמא דברה קירותך, וימליך מלכותך בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי תכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו, אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמך דקודשה לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. תתקבל צלותון ובאותון דכל ישראל קדם אבוהון דיבי שמיה ואמרו אמן. יש למה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו amen.
We have another upcoming bar mitzvah student, Elijah Goodman, who is going to lead us in Ein Kelohenu on 204 in Lev Shalem, 182 in Sim Shalom. Elijah.
Ein Kelohenu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkenu, Ein Kamoshienu, Mi Kelohenu, Mi Kadonenu, Mi kemalkeinu, mi kemoshienu. No del Eloheinu, no del Adonenu, no del Emalkeinu, no del Moshienu. Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu. Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shitiru, Avotenu, Lefaneha Ekatoret Hasamim.
Yasher Koach, Elijah, nicely done. And if you don't mind, I'm going to put you on a spot to see if you'll do the Beret Priya Galfin at the end of the service. Would you do that? Excellent. Good. Nicely done, Elijah. We continue the bottom of the page silently. Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar Rabbi Chanina.
Amar Rabbi Elazar. Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Aleinu leshabeach la'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת, אין עוד, אין עוד, אדוני אלוהינו. תמלוך בכבוד, ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
I'm going to read the list of yahrzeits that are observed today and this coming week. And then after I read the list, then Cantor Adina will chant the El Male, the memorial prayer. But today and this coming week, today and this coming week, we observe the yahrzeits of Maurice Samuel Adam, Mordechai Zalman Ben Yitzchak Esther, Lorraine Davidson, Morris Refson, Moshe Ben Yaakov, Reuben Srego, Chaim Ruvain Ben Yaakov Yosef, Ed Yeager, Esther Bat Lazer, Vesimcha, Anna Muller, Chana Bat Levi, Sharon Rubenstein, Shoshana Bat Raphael, Emmanuel Segal, Bell Shapiro, Morris Leonard Stupple, Melvin Wohl, Robert Block, Louis Feinstein, Sophie Stupple, Bessie Weiner, Basha Bat Reb Zalman Vizlata, Shirley Zarni, Nathan Kirschner, Florence Goldberg, Hyman Hutter, Myrtle Liedman, Hadassah Bat Harav Yehuda Umenucha, Sybil Levinson, Sadie Bat Shmuel Visara, Philip Menek, Pinchas Ben Aryeh Leib HaKohen, Stanley Rosen, Shmuel Dov Ben Raphael Vigittel, Emma Gross Sloin, Ilka Bat David, Milton Balsam, Michael Ben Shlomo David, Abraham Gimbel, Francis Janet Liedman, Hannah Bat Yisrael Umenucha, Nathaniel Harris Mahler, Naftali Hertz Ben Yoel, Leon Rosenberg, Leib Ben Yitzchak, Louis Rosenthal, Aryeh Leib Ben Benjamin, Fanny Saslow, Jacob Dietz, Rivka Drovzinski, Rivka Bat Reb Michel, Sylvia Gelt, Grace Goldstein, Celia Keros, Tzipara Bat Elchanan, Paul Perrett, Molly Schlonsky, Sylvia Zinneman, Ira Fleming, Rosellen Fleming, Philip Hutter, Victor Liedman, Avigdor Ben Avraham, Gassi Levine, Rose Schick, Miriam Rachel Bat Avraham, Alfred Leon Vogel, Avraham Ben Label Verachel, Abraham Wolf, and Herman Yanovich, Chaim Ben Yitzchak. May their memories always be for a blessing.
El male rachamim, shochen bar meromim, hametzeh menucha nechona, tachat kanfei hashechina. במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים. לנשמות כל אלה שהזכרנו היום לברכה, שהלכו לעולמם. בגן עדן תהי מנוחתם. אנא בעל רחמים, הסתירם בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמותיהם. אדוני הוא נחלתם, וינוחו בשלום על משכבותיהם, ונאמר אמן.
Amen. Mourners and those observing Yartzeit remain standing for Kaddish, page 207 in Lev Shalem, 184 in Sim Shalom. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon of yomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, b'agalav izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'me'omaya. Barach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei, v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudesha barichu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, tamiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav v'yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. We conclude with Adon Olam, page 211, and Lev Shalem, 187, Sim Shalom.
Adon Olam asher malach, בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נעשה וחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא, ואחרי ככלות הכל, לבדו ימלוך נורא, והוא היה והוא יהיה לתפארה, והוא אחד ואין שני, להמשילו, להכבירה, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמשרה, והוא אלי וחי גואלי, וצור חבלי בעת צרה, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי ביום אקרא, בידו אפקיד רוחי, בעת אישה ויעירה, ואם רוחי גוויעתי, אדוני לי ולא יירא.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Yasha Koach to Cantor Adina for leading us, as usual, beautifully. A few announcements before we conclude with Kiddush. I want to thank Stacy Lynch for being our Zoom co-host this morning and ensuring that the service went smoothly. We welcome everyone who is here this morning, guests and otherwise. Good to see you all this morning. Wanted to regarding those guests that you might have seen this morning. One was Tammy Lawrence. She happens to be the president of Beth Shalom in Colombia. We are exploring ways in which we can expand our programming with Beth Shalom in Colombia. You may have noticed in the Daf HaShavua, and some of you may have attended the first of a three-part series of book author events that Beth Shalom in Colombia was hosting. One was this past Sunday. There are a couple more coming up. Also, we will be joining together for a musical Friday night service on Friday night, February 5th. So if people can mute themselves still, please. That's I took care of that. Okay. Friday night, February 5th, the same time, 6 o'clock, will be a combined Beth Shalom Columbia Sharei Tefillah musical Friday night service. I want to thank Jules Fink for doing Kiddush at services last night, to Joel Friedman and Naomi Adin Mendick for reading Torah and chanting the Haftorah this morning, for Margie, Kathleen, and Valerie for doing the prayers, for Cheyenne Feldman for leading us in Ashrei, and Elijah Goodman for leading us in En Keloheinu, and Kiddush momentarily. This evening, Shabbat is over around 10 to 6, and so we'll have Minyan evening service and Havdalah at 5:55. 5:55 this evening, the same link for that. And all the other programs that are coming up, Makers and Bakers, and other programs are listed in that Daf HaShavua, that weekly update that was sent out. It's also available on the website. Go to the COVID-19 page and scroll down a little bit. You'll see in red, click here for the weekly program page, and you'll see all of the events that are coming up. So we conclude with Kiddush, which is found on page 77 in the Leib Shalem, or 315 in Sim Shalom. And Elijah, I'm trusting, so you're not on my first page of screen pictures. There you are. Good. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael t'Shabbat la'asara Shabbat l'doratam brit olam b'nei yovein b'nei Yisrael tili olam ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai t'shamayim v'et haaretz u'hayom hashvi'i Shabbat v'yinafash zachor yom ha'Shabbat l'kadsho sheshet yamim tavod v'asita kol mlachtecha v'yom hashvi'i Shabbat l'Adonai Elohecha lo taseh kol mlacha ata uvincha v'techa avdelcha v'amatcha v'emtecha v'gercha shebisharecha ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai t'shamayim v'et haaretz l'yam v'kol sherbam v'yanach b'yom hashvi'i Al Kain Berach Adonai et Yom HaShabbat Vayakadshehu Savri.
Chaim.
Go ahead, Elijah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen. Amen.
Amen. So I did forget to say before saying Shabbat Shalom about the COVID-19 virus. You'll see also a link on on that week at the bottom of the weekly page, the daf, where in Montgomery County to sign up to get alerts or notification of when it's your turn to get the virus. That's Montgomery County. I don't know how to do it in Howard County or Frederick County or PG County, but that it's very important to try to get on the list. And I know it's very complicated and not smooth here in Maryland. I did want to say, because some people have asked about it, and I brought it up earlier this week at Minion, that I might be getting the vaccine myself on Friday. I told the Torah class in the morning, it was a complicated process because I thought I was eligible because some of the work that I do as your rabbi has social work kind of equivalence, and social workers were allowed to get the vaccine already. So in signing up for an appointment for the vaccine, clergy is not a job title that was listed as something to check off as being eligible. So I checked off other, and I was told, somehow I heard about this, you bring a letter from your employment that describes the work that you do. So I wrote the letter. As the rabbi, I can write the letter on Sharei Tefillah letterhead, saying that among the work that I do is social work type work, counseling, visiting people in the hospital, and officiating at funerals outside, especially, God forbid, like I did this week for a 103-year-old Max Liederman, his funeral this past Wednesday, and he died of COVID as well. So I went to Quince Orchard High School. It's one of two sites in Montgomery County. First, I went to White Oak Community Center in the morning. They rejected me, but I heard that, well, try again. I went to Quince Orchard High School in Gaithersburg in the afternoon and was allowed in to the building. And then at the desk where they have 4 people screening people, you wait in line, the person said, I think you're okay to go, but I got to get the supervisor here. And the supervisor said, okay, I'll let you in, but don't tell anybody. So because as clergy, not on the list, so what to do? So I feel kind of badly that I got the vaccine, but not so badly because of the work that I do. I feel better being semi-protected already. And hopefully it's the Moderna vaccine. So on February 12th, I'll get the second dose. And then I'll feel more confident to be able to do the things fully that I can do for you. So with this complicated rollout of the vaccine, be patient, please. And hopefully all of you, when you're eligible and you get the notice that you can do it, please do it for your own safety and for our safety too, and to eradicate this virus from our midst. So Shabbat Shalom, everybody. You can unmute yourselves. It's good to see you all today. Nearly 50 screens today, so that's wonderful.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Shalom. Shalom, everybody.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Stay well.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Nice.
Shalom.
Hi, Marley.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Wow.
Stay safe.
You too.
Stay well.
Yeah, stay safe.
Stay safe. Everyone stay safe.
Shabbat Shalom, Charlotte.
Shabbat Shalom too.
Shabbat Shalom.
Okay, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom. Glad you got the vaccine, Jonah.
What?
Glad you got the vaccine.
Yeah, so am I. It was
Yeah.
quite the process, but yeah.
You certainly deserve to get it for the work that you do.
Well, I don't know, but yeah.
Oh,
I get
yes,
the toilet
because you're
paper.
around all people for everything, for whatever problems they are, you're there.
So
And
the
it's
nurse
important that you stay
who
safe.
gave it to me said that when she had it, her arm was sore for 3 days.
Yeah.
My arm now, so I have my hand on my armrest of my chair.
Yeah.
Down, even that, if I touch the site, is it a little bit sore? Otherwise, no.
Oh, that's great.
That's
Good
good.
to hear that.
But please
That's good
get
to
the
hear.
vaccine when you can get the vaccine. And I hope, I don't know, my parents in Pennsylvania, they're eligible to get it, but I don't.
We signed up.
And we signed up, we're registered.
You're
we're
registered.
waiting.
So you just have to wait.
We're waiting.
Where to go. Yep. Yeah, so hopefully you'll all get notified and hopefully it'll be done smoothly. And there's another chance with the president elect Biden coming to office, suggesting that FEMA is going to take over the process for the entire country. Perhaps that will make it a more coordinated and energetic rollout of the vaccine. Perhaps, who knows? But,
Yeah, God willing.
Well, we know FEMA's record.
well, I don't know. Well, we don't know about FEMA because thankfully we haven't had hurricanes up here to experience. But
Yeah.
I don't know. We can only hope and pray that
Right.
whatever it is, it'll be
Right.
Absolutely.
all right.